Let's look long term there because let's take Trump, for example, first. You said he's quasi isolationist, wants to look inward. What does that do to the United States' stance on the global stage in the long term?
Ultimately, it leaves the US with less political leverage. The US playing a smaller role in NATO, the US playing a less direct role in any number of multilateral arrangements in the Indo Pacific doesn't mean that those frameworks cease to exist. It means the US plays a smaller role in them. That leaves the US with less leverage to pursue other policy agendas that it wants to pursue, whether that's human rights, trade, economic interreliance, regulatory alignment on combating or blocking out Chinese expanded tech influence, for instance. The US has less leverage to do that, the less involved it is in the systems that other countries view as the overarching architectures for national security, diplomacy, diplomatic engagement.
We've had insight into how Trump would lead on on the international stage because he was president for 4 years. But what about Harris? Because she hasn't been president yet. She's been vice president. She hasn't totally diverted from the Biden administration. She said on The View, nothing comes to mind when asked if she would do anything different from Biden. And quote, I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact. So what does 4 years with Harris at the helm look like when it comes to America on the global stage?
I think you should take her at her word. I think it will look a lot like the 4 years that Biden was in charge, to be quite honest. Harris is not a foreign policy person. Does not have a deep bench of foreign policy experience, which is a pretty extreme contrast to her president right now, Joe Biden, who was a longtime chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. He came in with a really well-defined policy agenda. She's not. She's going to take her cues from her advisors. Now, that's what a president does, and her advisors are largely going to come from the same ideological base as those people that advise Biden. Phil Gordon, her current national security advisor, Bill Burns, the current DCI. Both of those individuals look like they have a pathway to a job in a Harris administration if they want it, and both of them would pursue a similar approach to the one that we see Biden pursuing today. It's important to note, you mentioned Trump. You might see Trump a little bit differently than his first term as well. Trump's going to be surrounded by people who share his ideological viewpoint much more fully than in his first term, and that enables him to potentially move more rapidly and make more substantial policy changes in a short period of time, because he'll have more uniform support from the people that turn those policy goals into actual action.